Megan Hicks of I Run Far, and I'm here in Chamonix, France. It's the day after the 2016 UTMB. I'm with men's podium finisher, Tim Tollefson. Dude, you made the UTMB podium!
I did! I know, it's pretty exciting. It's unreal.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
I think we should actually start over and take like a few step away from the bushes.
Okay.
Otherwise,
I think I'm going to be moving around. And
we'll speak, because it does like autofocus and I'm slightly different. Start focusing on. Okay.
Yep. Okay, I'm loose. I'm ready.
Megan Hicks of I Run Far, and I'm here in Chamonix, France. It's the day after the 2016 UTMB. I'm with men's third place finisher, American Tim Tollefson. You made the UTMB podium!
It's crazy, right?
Is it crazy?
On paper, it's crazy.
On paper.
I mean, I wasn't expecting to finish in the top three, but I'd be lying if I said that I didn't think it was possible on a good day.
Most people take into races like this, into goal races, sort of ABC goals, you know, your dream goal, what you actually think is possible. Lay that out for me. What was on paper did you think you could do?
I guess for people outside of kind of like my own personal relationships in our camp, it's probably
what I said to the public was
it was probably a big surprise, but first and foremost, finishing was the number one objective. Essentially, my longest race before this was CCC, 101K. I did Trans-Gran Canaria, but it was hardly a race for me for various reasons. But so to run another 42 miles was daunting, and I had no idea how my body would respond when I'm that far into a race, time or distance-wise. So just completing it was definitely an objective. But that said, I did think a top 10 was doable, just looking at my training. I was confident that that was possible. And then my coach, he just reminded me, like, run as though you're a podium guy. And, don't doubt yourself later in the race. So it was in the back of my head, but it didn't become a reality until I saw you going into Champs-Élysées, and you said you were in eighth, you're in ninth, you're about to be in eighth, because Andy Simmons was really
having a little walk in
the
woods.
Yeah. And
sorry, Andy.
I know, Andy. But as I passed Andy, I said, "How are you? Like, are you okay?" And he said, "No, my legs are gassed." And then he mentioned that I looked stronger than everyone he had seen go by, and that if I kept climbing that way, I could be on the podium by the end. And that was the first time that actually registered, maybe this is possible. But until that point, I wasn't even thinking about the podium. It was just, I had these kind of objectives throughout the race that I set, and I was checking them off. And then at that point, it became, okay, maybe this could happen.
I want to rewind and go back earlier in the race a little bit. This is your second here in the UTMB scene. You ran the third place at the CCC last year. You saw the circus, you saw the spectacle, you saw how much energy there is. But when the race started, you exhibited a lot of poise and patience. How did you resist?
I know it's tough. And especially as a road guy, or a history on the, racing on the roads, 5K to the marathon, the temptation in this first 8 kilometers is almost on a paved road or a gravel road.
It's a runner's race for the first 8K.
It is. So, I mean, letting loose, and of course everyone's fresh, it was tempting to be running 6-minute pace, for those first 5 miles. But one thing I really learned from great coaches in the marathon was displaying emotional control. And with any marathon coach will instruct people, it's a 20-mile tempo and then a 10-kilometer race at the end. If you're racing the first 13, you're doing it wrong. And that was kind of my focus in this. I wanted to run I kind of thought I broke it into, it's going to be a 120-kilometer adventure, and I want to enjoy it as much as possible, but then tack on a really, really hard 50K and close hard. And that was kind of the goal. And I felt like I executed that pretty closely, where I got to La Folie and Champs-Élysées feeling like I had a lot of life in my legs. I'd had some low points throughout the night, but got through pretty quickly, which was nice. But then when it was ready to kind of turn it on, I was gaining confidence as I passed people that were struggling, verbally and visually. I could tell there was carnage, and I have to thank Zach for that. But and we didn't plan that out, but without a doubt, his race strategy played into Laney and my execution. So we had the front runner that
destroyed people in front of you.
Yes.
Made room for you to sweep in.
Yeah. So,
well, if it wasn't Zach, it was going to be somebody else or some other people. So
yeah, that is true. Yeah.
This was some 40 odd miles of racing unknown territory for you. How did you literally pace yourself? Because this is a place where a lot of people are. They run 50 milers, they run 100 Ks, and then they make this giant leap to racing 100 miles. How did you literally pace yourself? Did you slow yourself down? Were you running by heart rate? Were you looking at the people around you?
I definitely was very kind of cognizant of my effort, and I consciously slowed myself down.
Okay.
A good friend, Fernando, who actually finished his second UTMB this morning.
Yeah,
Fernando!
Somebody on social media called it a vision quest last night. I want to know if you had a vision quest, buddy.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah.
Oh, man. We spent the first 4 days with Topher Gaylord's family in Courmayeur. And when I got to France, or to Italy, I guess, last week, and we checked out that side of the course. And one thing Fernando kept telling me, like, he said, just lock into your forever pace. And I had that mantra going in my head early on where I just was locking into my forever pace. And I felt like, okay, this is an effort I could go forever. And I knew I wasn't pushing hard, but I needed that energy come the late climbs. And then after I started passing people at Champagne Lock, those next 3 climbs were just brutal.
Super brutal.
They're really tough. And there were a few times where I got into race mode and to the point where I passed a guy and then he came up on me and I felt myself pushing too hard. And I just thought, you know, let him go. Go back into your forever pace. You still have 2 giant climbs after this.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly just trying to tell myself, don't push yet. Like, you want to push the final climb. And that's kind of what I did when I finally saw Zach for the first time. I redlined on that climb, knowing that I'm within 10 to 15 kilometers of the finish. I think I can at least stagger across the line at this point.
Yeah.
But before that, I was fearful of going too hard. Yeah.
How was your nutrition?
Nutrition was it was pretty solid. Yeah, I was using Roctane drinks that Goo makes, and early on I was drinking about 1 an hour. And I talked to Magda at Western States. She was doing that during her Western States win. She drank 1 bottle an hour, and I was aiming for about 1 bottle an hour, and then like supplementing that with some other stuff. But the final 50K here, Champagne Lock to the finish, it was heating up. Like, it got really warm. And I historically do terrible in the heat, so I was fearful that I would blow up, and you're exposed out there. And at that point, I started drinking 2 bottles an hour, which is more than I've ever done, but I was sweating so much.
Everywhere.
So I mean, I was drinking like 500 calories an hour at that point.
And it was going down.
And it was going down.
Awesome.
I wasn't having any problems there, and so it was probably the best my nutrition's ever gone. During the middle of the night, there were times where I was like drinking Coke at the aid stations and drinking some of their soup. And occasionally I'd have like these little like mini sugar bonks after that, where I'd get like nauseous and like feel real lightheaded, and it was a bit scary, but they never lasted longer than maybe like 10 or 15 minutes, which was nice. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the team dynamic. There were 3 Americans who had outstanding performances yesterday. 3rd, 4th, 6th. 3 people who had very dominant presence in the race, whether it was, late race surges or early race pushing. But when I interviewed David and Zach before the race, they kind of made no bones about it. Like, yeah, we're teammates, but we're going to be racing each other.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about what that was like? So the last climb up to Tête Vent, there's Zach.
Yeah.
You have to pass him to move into podium position. I know you guys are racing each other, but what was that actually like to have to put your teammate away?
I mean, it was tough because it was heartbreaking for me because throughout the race I was getting reports, Zach is crushing people, and I was jazzed about it. I'm thinking like, this is his day. He's going to have an amazing, like, he's just going to be a god after this. And then I started getting reports. I started getting those reports.
He already is one.
I know
I'm
he
just
is.
kidding.
In Europe, he pretty much is.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Zach.
Pretty sure some of his carbon sculpture in somewhere. That'd be awkward. I don't want to see it.
No. But on that climb, Laney was closing on me. And so Zach's up ahead. I'm trying to close in on Zach, and Laney's closing in on me. And I kept looking back, and Laney was getting closer and closer. And I started, at that point, for the first time in the race, I went into the red. Like, I was redlining and just thinking, okay, like, hold off Laney, because I was then fearful that I'd lose my 4th place position. And but at the same time, I thought,
you weren't looking ahead at that point.
At that point, I wasn't. I was more concerned about David. But then in my head, it was like,
kind of concerned about him too.
I know.
And how he closed last year.
And on the final descent, once I did have 3rd, all I thought is Laney's going to kick you down. Laney's going to kick you down like he did to Seth. But so on that final climb, it was interesting where the 3 of us are going up that together essentially, although we're at totally different stages of our own personal races. And I thought to myself, how ironic would be if we all just blew each other up right here, though, and we all fell out of the top 10 because we're like, I'm trying to hold off Laney,
with each other.
Zach's trying to hold me off, I'm trying to catch Zach, and then we all just completely disintegrate. But when I did make contact with Zach for the first time, I asked him, are you okay? Do you need gels or fluids? And he said, no, I'm just cooked. And then I said, do you mind if I take off and go for 2nd place? And he said, of course, it's a race. But I felt bad because, I want to be there with him. And I think David even said he envisioned like all 3 of us almost moving up together, going after 2nd place. But, we were all at different stages at that point. But it was hard to leave him just knowing that he was struggling. But in typical Miller fashion, I started pushing and instantly he latched on. And for about a minute, I turned around and I'm like, he's going to, have a second wind and he's going to come back into 3rd place. But it didn't last very long. I think it finally caught up to him. I mean, he had an incredible day. But.
So talk to me about Teto going to the finish, because, I mean, we had 3 people placed up in different spots on that, traverse and descent. And everybody said that you were just, like, I mean, it was a totally different Tim. You were like this happy-go-lucky guy for 160K, and then you just look like this dude in distress. He's just working it, like working it so hard.
That's probably a fair assessment.
Okay.
And that final, when you traverse across to La Fligier, in a lot of ways that reminds me of some of the Eastern Sierra trails I run, like in the backcountry.
It does, doesn't it?
Like you have like these high granite steps, and and it really just brought me back home. And at that point, although I was 100% in race mode and engaged, I was internally enjoying it and just got into a nice rhythm where I was hammering that section. And part of it was still fear that Laney was going to catch me, and a little bit of, maybe I can get up to 2nd place. But I don't know what, my watch had died at that point, so I don't know what I was running, but it felt like I was moving pretty quickly across there. And some of those times on the trail where you're floating across the trail despite the technicality of it. That's kind of how it felt in 160 kilometers in, but I still I was light on my feet.
160K float.
Yes.
Because us down here, we were looking at splits, and we were actually following your splits to get Amidas, and they're decreasing numbers. Did you at any point catch sight of him? Could you see him out there?
No. Okay. And I, although when I left Zach, I said I'm going to see how close I can get to 2nd, I didn't know the distance or the time gap. And I think internally I knew it probably wouldn't happen, but it was just something to go after. But on the final, once I got onto, when you leave or descend out of La Fligier, you initially have some switchbacks that are pretty rooty, like it's technical, and then you hit just a gravel road. And when I hit the gravel road, the road marathoner came out at me, and I wish I had my watch, because I think I was under 6-minute pace, like going down it, and there was someone running with a camera behind me, and I think I dropped him. But I just got into rhythm, and then someone said he's 4 minutes ahead, and I didn't know how long I had left to the finish, but I thought, if I'm going 6-minute pace and he's going 7 to 8 minutes, I could make up a minute to 2 per mile. And then I started thinking, okay, let's really turn it on. And but then once it leveled out from a descent to a flat, my legs remind me that they're gassed, and I was like, I don't think I have much left in me. I'm just using gravity right now. And I think ultimately I ran out of real estate, where maybe if there was a couple more kilometers, but I'm very pleased with how it went, because I just wanted to complete that race, and I'm walking away with it with so much positive, so many positive experiences, learning opportunities, and from the start to the finish, I never put myself in it to win. like unlike Zach,
Right.
went forward and
Went to win.
went to win.
Yeah.
I was not going to win, and maybe in a future 100, if I ever do one, maybe I'll go in with a different mentality. But it was nice not to have any stress. I went in just to enjoy it, and I enjoyed that race. So yeah.
You're a guy who, at least when it comes to this part of your life, you wear your heart on your sleeve. And like your heart was like this big thing at the finish yesterday. You came into the finish, you had this like moment of self-celebration, and then you just went out again and high-fived everybody else.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you knew, but the announcers were like, "Well, there he goes. He's really far out now.
He disappeared."
You know, the race director's waiting for you to come back, but there he.
Sorry, Katrine.
But I just want you to try to express how that moment felt.
It's hard to describe it, and I mean, it's not like I don't visualize in training like winning. I didn't win, but like doing well at the finish line. I am more concerned about the process, not the outcome. And so when that comes to fruition and I have a kind of a banner day, I guess it's just, something internal just comes out. Like it's nothing that's planned or orchestrated, but you've been at the finish line, and it's truly sort of just this magical experience that Chamonix offers. And I was fortunate to run collegiate athletics and go to the NCAA championships and run some big major marathons.
See a lot of different types of races with different types of energies.
Correct.
Yeah.
And some of those world major marathons, you have 40,000 people in the race and 1 million people lining the streets, which is an incredible amount of energy. But there's something more personal about this one that, the fans are so knowledgeable and supportive.
The people who are on the sidelines are actually part of the sport rather than
just bystanders that
city.
As always in Chicago, and there was a run going on, so I walked out and started cheering. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
They're knowledgeable and passionate
Yes.
people.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I've been really lucky to have 2 positive experiences. I feel like maybe I should just retire from Chamonix and not try and get a 3rd one next year and blow it. But
well, congratulations
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thank you.
It was fun to watch your race.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for being out there.
Of course.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll just make sure that there's sound. Not that that's...
What's your best side? Where do you stand?
I'm gonna come stand over here. What's your best side? Do we need to switch?
I kind of like my left side. The left profile's a little better, but
We can switch.
there we go. Yeah, it just feels more comfortable.
Okay. You
So
good?
I'm good. Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh.
Megan.